Okay, so I'm going to be showing you how to do this assignment here. Bear with me, I'm new to Cami, so this is going to be very painful to some extent. Okay, so we're going to be doing the right section and also the practice section. In the right section is just a matter of matching up these words with their definitions. So for example, a location in space, that would be a point. So you just go ahead and write point in there. Okay, and then you just have to do the rest of the definitions. Okay, so the second part, which is I suppose the more difficult part, even though it's not too terrible, says translations can be described using lines and line segments. So for this assignment, we're going to be making transformation machines. And essentially, the transformation machines is a concept that the book um, has come up with, which is basically just a combination of um, line segments, lines and rotation angles that we can use to describe transformations like translations, reflections, and rotations of shapes. So when we're doing this assignment, this is what you should know. Okay, so let me get a blank space here. Okay, okay, so we're gonna I want to make this white. Okay, all right, so now for translations, I want us to use line segments. Okay, and these line segments can either be horizontal, they can be vertical, they can even be diagonal. Although for this assignment, they're pretty much primarily just going to be horizontal and vertical. Okay, and so when we had these translations, we can describe a translation. Let's say right here it says translate a figure to the left. We could put a triangle here, call that our pre-image. Pre-image meaning pre as in before, so the image that came before the translation. And then we can draw our image, which is what our thing was after the image. Okay, we could put that I. And here we're going to be having multiple images, so I put I1 for that. Okay, so in the practice it says to translate a figure. You can pick any figure you want. Here I chose an upside down triangle, but for your purposes you could use a square, you could use a right triangle, whatever you want. Okay, so so we use line segments for translations. Now for let's say reflections, we're going to want to use lines. Okay, so let me just erase this up here. Oops. Okay. Okay, so for reflections, we're going to want to use lines. Okay, and lines differ from line segments because lines have the arrowheads at the end, whereas line segments have endpoints. Okay, um, and so we would use something like this to show a reflection. Let's say we want to translate a shape over a horizontal line. We would draw a horizontal line and then we draw a shape. Now this is going to look really bad because I'm using a mouse, but that's kind of like what it would look like. Okay, we reflected our pre-image over this line to our image, and reflections are basically just flipping the shape. Okay, so we want the mirror image of this, right? And this reflection can also be horizontal or vertical, and it can also be diagonal, although for this assignment, all the reflections will be either horizontal or vertical. Okay, geez, why do I keep doing that? Okay, so now the last transformation that we need to know how to represent is going to be our rotations. Okay, and the rotations we're going to represent with a rotation angle. Okay, so this would be an example of a rotation angle. For this assignment, all of our rotations are either going to be 90 degrees. So let's say we have a 90-degree angle here, and we want to take our shape 90 degrees clockwise. So every rotation is of a shape happens about a certain point. For this assignment, we're just going to rotate our shapes about one of the vertexes. Okay, so we can put our shape here and say that we are going to rotate about this point here. And so when we rotate this shape 90 degrees clockwise, which is in this direction, right, our final shape should look something like this. Okay, so that's our pre-image, and that would be our image. Okay. All right, so that would be a 90-degree angle. There's also one question that asks about a 180-degree angle. And if you know anything about angles, a 180-degree angle is just a straight line. And so, for example, this shape could maybe start here, that being our pre-image, and then maybe end up somewhere like that. And that would be our image. See, it's been rotated clockwise 180 degrees. Okay, so for this assignment, we are going to be um, combining these line segments, lines, and rotation angles in order to do what they're asking us. Okay, so let's go ahead and try one of these, a couple of these actually. So let's get our shape here. I want to create a white background. Okay. Okay, it's not letting me create one. Okay, here we go. It didn't go all the way. All right, okay. So we got a white background. Okay, so question number 1 says translate a figure to the left, then translate the figure up. Okay, so I'm going to bring out the ruler and try and get this to look a little bit more neater. So let's go ahead and get our thing there. Okay, so we're going to need a horizontal line segment because we're translating our shape to the left. Okay, so we can go ahead and make a shape here. Let's say we want to do a right triangle. All right, so we draw something like that, call that our pre-image, and we're translating it to the left. So our final image would look something like this. Call that our image 1, right? Now that's not all it says. It says then you need to translate the figure upwards. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to need more space. So let's go ahead and make the rest of this white. Okay, and now we're going to draw a vertical line segment, and hopefully we can do that in black. Right, so we're going to draw a vertical line segment, and then we're going to translate our shape up. Okay, so draw that like that. Call that our I2. Okay, so we took our original figure, we translated it to the left, and then we translated it up. And this here would be the answer for number 1. Okay. All right. So let's talk about question number 10. So for question number 10, it says rotate a figure clockwise 90 degrees, translate the figure down. Can you all see that? Yes, you can. Rotate a figure clockwise 90 degrees, translate the figure down, and then reflect the figure across a horizontal line. Okay, so we're rotating the figure, so we're going to need a rotation angle, right? So let's go back here. Let's grab our ruler, and let's rotate that to about 90 degrees, roughly. Okay, and then let's draw our line here. Okay, and then we're going to rotate it horizontally. Okay, So there we have our 90-degree rotation angle. And it says rotate the figure clockwise 90 degrees. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw our starting shape. I'm going to go ahead and start it here. And we're going to rotate it about this point here. Okay, so we're rotating it 90 degrees. So you can imagine this side is going to rotate and become this side. And so the base of the triangle is going to be here, and the point is going to be pointing upwards. Okay, so there we go. So that would be our pre-image and our image. Okay, and then it says translate the figure down. Okay, so now we're going to translate. And so what do we need for a translation? We need a line segment, right? So we're going to go ahead and get our ruler again. We're going to make a black line going downwards. Okay, so we have our line segment, and now we want to translate our image one down. And so a translation is pretty much just a slide. And so this is what it's going to kind of look like after we do that translation downwards. And we can call that I2. Okay, and then lastly it says, take your figure and reflect the figure across a horizontal line. Okay, so like I said, for reflections, we're going to be using lines. Okay, so we need to go ahead and create our line. So let's go ahead and create our horizontal line here so that we can reflect our shape over it. Line gets the arrowheads. Okay, and now let's draw the reflection of it, which is basically just the shape flipped around over the line. Okay, and there we go. That would be our final image. And this would be essentially the answer for question number 10. Okay. Now, when you're going through these problems, some of these questions can get a little bit weird depending on how you start your shape. So let's say, for example, one of the problems, you started like this, and they said to reflect your shape across a vertical line. And so this was our starting shape, and let's say this was an in-between shape. You can imagine if you were to reflect this shape over this line, you would get something like this, and then you'd have these two shapes overlapping each other. Okay, that's fine for our purposes. It might not look pretty, but as long as you can kind of follow the transformations, it doesn't matter. Okay, so if you have two shapes that kind of overlap because the step requires it, it's fine. Just make sure that it's somewhat visible. But yeah, okay, so that's basically the assignment. For example, figure 1 says translate a figure down, then reflect the figure across a horizontal line. So for that, you're going to need a line segment. You'll need a line segment, and so you translate the figure down, then reflect the figure across a horizontal line. So then once the shape gets down to the bottom of this line segment, you're going to need a horizontal line. Okay, and then you draw your shape as an example of that transformation. Coming down, sliding down here, and then reflecting across this line. Okay, so good luck with that.